Thanks so much everyone for watching. We've got an epic lineup tonight of speakers. We've got an awesome panel here. Amazing group of functional doctors, technology, activists for a leap forward in medicine.
You know, our goal is to make it easy for practitioners to learn in community.
This ecosystem that is being set up by the meetup groups, we believe will be the future ecosystem of this evolved primary care network, and it all revolves around you.
Welcome to the Functional Forum. Thanks for joining us in the charge to accelerate the evolution of medicine. Please welcome your host, James Masco.
Hello and welcome to the 66th episode of the Functional Forum. We are back at the Institute for Functional Medicine's annual international conference. This year's topic is stress, pain, and addiction. And in this episode, we're going to be hearing from some of the speakers, we're going to be hearing from the practitioner community, and we're going to be featuring the awards and some of the other interviews we did during the weekend. It was an awesome conference, and you're going to get the best bits right now. Hello and welcome to a very special interview. We've been wanting to get Dr. Wayne Jonas on the Functional Forum for over 5 years, and thank you so much, Doc, for coming and being on the show. Dr. Jonas has held positions in the NIH and also with the Samueli Institute, leading the integrative medicine movement. And Doc, your talk today was really on the transformation of healthcare. So for the people who didn't have a chance to make it, can you sort of give us the major bullet points of how you feel healthcare can be transformed with some of the work that's being doing here?
Sure. Yeah, I think healthcare has been increasingly focused on subspecialty care, later care, care of individuals after they've developed an illness, and it focuses on largely pills, procedures, and things that we can do to people. When the data actually shows that most of what creates health, what are called the determinants of health, actually come from behavior, lifestyle, things like nutrition, stress management, sleep, exercise, or the social determinants, the social factors that enable people to make those changes or don't enable people to make those changes. The availability of food and housing and sufficient income and this type of thing, education components. And so healthcare, if it's going to be part of the solution of creating health for the nation, if it's actually going to be creating health for the nation, needs to get out of simply the medical care box and begin to address these underlying determinants of health. And my talk was about how to do that. And I think integrative health is the way to do that. It's the merger of conventional care that we provide in medical care with evidence-based complementary practices, non-pharmacological approaches, and most importantly, self-care, behavior and self-care. So delivering that type of health service is what I talked about and how to do that.
So this conference has been focused on stress and addiction and pain, and I know that as someone who's in the armed forces, this is a big topic, particularly for veterans. It seems to me that those three topics really reinforce why this is absolutely necessary more than maybe other topics.
Yeah, well, I'm a family physician. I see patients in a primary care clinic in the military. I see a lot of patients with chronic pain, many of whom are on opioids that are not helping them in the long run. So they also have multiple other conditions, PTSD, some with traumatic brain injury, other chronic conditions. And so you really have to take a whole person approach to do that. So I work in an integrative pain clinic within primary care that actually delivers a holistic model within the military. And so it provides complementary services like acupuncture, yoga, nutrition, that type of thing. But it also provides education to the patient and empowerment. So we run groups, for example. I do something called the Hope Note after we do the SOAP Note, which is a healing-oriented practices and environments note, which asks the patients what matters to them, not just what's the matter, and it uses that as the guide for helping them then develop their own personalized healing plan that then we support.
Yeah, let's get a bit further into that, because obviously in functional medicine there's sort of like a prioritization system based on function. You're talking about really having the patient guide the process. Tell us about the Hope Note and how it's been integrating the Hope Note in a SOAP Note world.
Right. Well, functional medicine came out of a conventional medical model and brought in additional types of resources, information, evidence, and practices into that. It comes from an expertise model. You're the functional medicine doctor, so you've been trained and you know all the evidence and the data about what is important around nutrition, for example, around stress management, around pain management. But that professional expert model often doesn't allow the patient to actually guide their own healing path, because the goal should be guiding them towards their own healing path. This is called patient-centered care or person-centered care, and you have to start with where they're at. What I found in my own practice is that there are multiple pathways to healing. And we as experts think, oh, you've got to do this, right? And that's what's going to get you better. And that is an expertise model. But it may be that the patient can get healed and can activate their own inherent healing capacity through something else. And so you have to ask them what that is. You have to ask them what matters in their life. Why do they actually want to be well, not just because they want to be free of pain, but what do they do with it afterwards. And then let them be the guide. And you're there to provide the support structure, to bring in the evidence and to bring in the kind of determinants and assist them in implementing their own healing path.
What does the range of modalities that you have at your disposal look like? Well, what's your toolkit for a new patient that comes in that has sort of either a chronic pain or an addictive issue that the cause is unknown?
Yeah, so we have a variety of things that we could draw out in the toolkit. Things that are non-pharmacological for pain management, for example. It can include anything from a CES device, an electrical device, to a laser component, to acupuncture, etc. But these are all bridging components. They're still things you do, okay? So as a physician, anything I pull out of my toolkit is just bridging me to the point where an individual can actually get engaged in their own self-care. I like modalities such as mind-body practices because it is a self-care component. Yoga is something that the patient can actually kind of do on their own. Stress management tools are things that they can do on their own. Nutrition is something that actually ultimately you want them to do on their own, okay? You can't be supporting them on, you can't be standing there next to them in the grocery store or in the kitchen, etc. You can teach them those skills.
Right?
Exactly. So the goal is to get towards the empowerment of the patients so that they're taking care of their own health and then supporting that process. And linking anything, any tool, or any educational component to their own meaning and purpose is the key to engaging them in their own integration and empowerment.
I mean, you've been doing this for a few decades. What have you learned along the way that's sort of like the quickest journey from creating a new relationship with a new patient to getting them to engage into exactly that?
Yeah. So for years, it took me a long time to try to change the conversation in my practice with my patients. I'd have to sit down and say, well, I'd like to talk about, your lifestyle and stress and all that type of thing. And then I could get into actually talking about it, and that would take a while. But I've now found that there are simpler tools to do that, and there's also a readiness in the culture and even in the health system to have that happen. So I use several tools, and I'm doing a workshop this afternoon on how to use these tools. One is called the Personalized Health Inventory. I took it from the VA and I adapted it to a non-veteran environment, and something called the Hope Note. The Personalized Health Inventory is a 2-page questionnaire that they can take that immediately asks them what's important in their life, so you know what that is. And then it asks them questions about what they do to enhance their own health. So immediately they have a sense of what am I doing, what am I ready to do in those areas. And from that I can do a Hope Note, fill in those questions, and in the end we have a personalized health plan that we work together to accomplish. I'll give you an example, okay? So I had a man the other day who came in with chronic back pain, very common problem, very expensive problem in this country. And he had full access to conventional care, to platinum level health care, as I say. And he'd had injections, he'd had surgery, he'd had physical therapy, he'd had medications, he'd been on and off opioids. He happened to be off opioids at the time he came in. He was pretty discouraged, okay? He came in and we sat down and I asked him, well, if you were free of pain and function, what's the most important thing right now in your life? what would you do immediately? And he knew immediately. Patients know, okay? Sometimes you need to help them, but he knew immediately. He said, Doc, I've got 3 grandchildren. They live 5 hours away, and I cannot get in a car, drive down to see them, and get on the floor to play with them. I can't do that because of my back pain. If I could do that, that would be the most important thing that I would do right now. Yeah. And so I said to him, great, let's figure out how to get you on the floor and up and down so that you can do this. It now was no longer a pain question. Every time he'd come in, it was about pain, get it down, treat it, etc. Now it was about getting him to be able to get up and down the floor. So I took him over to the physical therapist and I said, he needs to be worked with so his core muscles are getting him up and down on the floor. And you know what? This is going to hurt. Yeah. And he said, I don't care. I'm going to do it. And he engaged in that. It took him 3 months of working with the physical therapist, sometimes very excruciatingly, and to build his strength. He was able to do that. And he called me up on the 4th month and he said, Doc, I've driven down, I got on the floor, and I've played with my grandkids. Now he's got the motivation to continue that behavior, and in 3 or 4 months later, his pain levels were significantly down after over almost 20 years of chronic low back pain. That's the power of engaging the patient in what matters.
In his goal.
That's right.
Right, exactly.
What mattered to him, and linking it to the therapeutic support structure that we have. Not assuming that I know what should happen to you and you do this.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your book. So if you haven't checked this out yet, How Healing Works, it's your new book that came out. I've been waiting for 15 years in this industry for someone with credibility to organize the arguments particularly about the placebo effect, into a structure where the average doctor would read it and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And maybe you could just, for those people who haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, can you just summarize like the sort of the way that drugs get approved and how we've been missing sort of arguably the most important effect that you see in drug trials?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I tried in this book to collate what I'd learned both in conventional medicine in the military for 20 years and also the data that I had the great fortune to be able to collect in other healing traditions from around the world, including Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic and other types of traditional practices, and look at what was the sort of the distillation of that process. And what I realized is that a lot of the ritual of care, the dance, if you will, that goes into a therapeutic system, regardless of what type of a system it is, actually enhances a healing effect to a great degree. In the West, we've called this the placebo effect, okay? We've said, oh, it has to do with belief, or it has to do with the patient-doctor relationship, or it has to do with a ritual, all of which it does. But we've tried to divide that out between that and the chemical or the other intervention that is separate from that. And then we've made the mistake of calling the treatment, the drug, the chemical real, and the ritual unreal, when actually the ritual is producing most of the effects, which is why you see huge effects in randomized placebo-controlled trials in those areas. And so if we were to study the underlying components of the placebo effect and bring them into our practice, and I say how to do that in the book, then you can enhance the healing capacity of anything that you're doing.
It should be a part of every clinic, every specialty, every organization, ritual maximized medicine. What would you call it?
I think we changed the name. We don't call it the placebo effect, which has sort of derogatory. I call it the meaning effect. And I wrote an article in the Annals of Internal Medicine with Dan Moorman a couple decades ago called Reframing the Placebo and Finding the Meaning Effect. And I call it the meaning response in my book because that's what you're looking for. That's at the core of self-healing.
Absolutely. Well, for everyone who's out there, I'm sorry that you weren't here with us at the conference, but please check out Dr. Jonas's book, How Healing Works, a must for everyone in our community. And Doc, thank you so much for taking it to the people in all the different ways that you're doing. And everyone in the community, really appreciates the people on the front lines taking it and taking the message into the place where it really matters for transformational system change. We want to see it people are working in their own little silo, in their own little town, helping people out, but I think it gives them hope that at the highest levels, people are realizing that this is the future of medicine, so thank you.
Well, I'm so happy to see the expansion of functional medicine, almost 1,000 people here this time, and I'm happy to be part of that. Appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Brian Stepanenko, Army family physician, and my 1-minute tip with regards to treating chronic pain patients is redefining what pain is. If you look at pain as an experience and you explain to the patient that your experience has several ingredients, what are those ingredients to the pain experience that is your unique personalized pain experience? And that would be a tissue issue, so a tissue signal, some tissue pathology that's creating a signal. Then the nerves and brain that are transmitting and interpreting that signal. So think about the integrity and function of those nerves and brain. And then think about the metabolic and hormonal environment that the nerves and brain are functioning in, so referring to it as a metabolic soup. Then you think about the mental and emotional and spiritual layer to that experience, and if they can acknowledge that my day-to-day experience of pain can be very different. If I had a fantastic night of sleep, if things are really going well, your experience of pain is going to be very different that day compared to a day where I slept like really poorly and maybe things were completely going wrong and the world was against me that day. That's a very different experience of pain. So it's an empowering tool, it's an empowering lens to think of pain as an experience as opposed to a thing that's happening to me that I have no control over. So it gives control back to the patient as long as they understand that they can modify that experience to pain.
Hi, I'm Robin Puglia. I'm a certified functional practitioner from the UK, and my top tip for other practitioners is spend the time doing the timeline in your initial consultation. It is honestly the number one, most profound, most important thing that I do in consults. It's the biggest connection that I have with the patient. It happens early on. You learn not everything that you need to know, but almost everything that you need to start working with somebody happens when you work through that timeline. It is the number one most important tool that I have in my clinic, and it's honestly just such a magic process going through that with somebody. The second tip that I have, I know you only asked me for one, but I'm going to add in an extra bonus one, is actually to assume that everybody is stressed and start from that baseline. Even if they're not identifying as stressed, their body might be physiologically responding as stressed. So always assume that and lay that over your protocols as well.
Hi, I'm Dr. Emily Gutierrez, and I am a doctor of nursing and a nurse practitioner, and we have a pediatric functional medicine clinic in Austin, Texas. What I've learned today is our kids are constantly in cell danger response because we're getting alerts from our phones. Tell your kids, turn off their alerts, limit their screen time, decrease their stress.
So our long-term sponsor on the Functional Forum is the Lifestyle Matrix Resource Center, and one of the reasons we decided to work with them because they created the group visit toolkits with Dr. Shilpa Saxena. She gave a talk at the conference about how group visits could be used for pain effectively, and we caught up with her for this interview. So you've got these group visit toolkits that you made with the Lifestyle Matrix Resource Center, and we've been talking a lot about that in the forums, and they're a sponsor actually of the Functional Forum. Why is this so specifically awesome for pain?
You see, pain is one of those things, like how mental health was a couple of decades ago. It's kind of this unspoken epidemic that's now finally coming up to the surface. And what happens when things come up to the surface is there needs to be some communication about it. The Group Visit Toolkit not only provides all the clinical information and the operational information to make it successful, but it creates the dialogue space for the practitioner and the patient to really open up about how pain affects them in day-to-day life and how there actually is a solution. Because don't you believe that most of society believes that when you have some sort of fracture or chronic pain diagnosis, well, that's it. Now you just have to learn to live with it and hope that you don't become an addict. And that just seems like what a dismal future to live into. So group medical appointments and these toolkits make it much easier for practitioners and offices to deliver hope in a very pragmatic way.
If you're watching at home and you want to get into group visits, go to goevomed.com/GVT. We'll put the links below. We'll have all the details on how you can get started. It's happening.
It is, and I'm so excited that social health is finally being considered as just an important nutrient as brassica vegetables.
Exactly. The group visit guru, Dr. Shilpa Saxena. We'll see you on the next segment. On the Wednesday before the conference, we hosted the annual pre-party and gave out the Evolution of Medicine Awards. It was an incredible event. It featured the launch of the Big Bold Health podcast with myself and Dr. Jeffrey Bland, and he gave a super inspiring talk, and we gave out a number of awards during the evening. Kristen Brokaw won Community Builder of the Year for her work in building the biggest and most successful meetup across the country in St. Louis. Andrea Nakayama won Media of the Year for her 15-Minute Matrix podcast. Tawny Jones from the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine won the award for Most Innovative Practice Model. Book of the Year was Dr. Rangan Chatterjee with How to Make Disease Disappear. Tech of the Year was Serbo, which used to be MDHQ. Researcher of the Year was Dr. Volta Longo. The Behind the Scenes Award went to the staff from the Personalized Lifestyle Medicine Institute, and Educator of the Year was Dr. Vincent Pedre. There was also a Lifetime Achievement Award for Dr. Walter Crinian that was collected by Dr. Jeffrey Bland. All right, I am super excited to be here with award-winning administrator from the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine and creator of Functioning for Life. It was the winner of Business Model of the Year on Wednesday night at the awards. Tawny Jones, welcome. Glad to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored and must extend my gratitude for the awards. So thankful.
Well, it's super amazing. You know, we're looking for ways that functional medicine can make it to the masses, and you pioneered the group visit model there. For people who didn't listen to the podcast yet or haven't had a chance to look at it, can you just share with us a little bit about the success of the program?
Sure. Functioning for Life is a 10-week innovative shared medical or group model with a functional medicine focus. It's a 10-week-long program that helps patients with nutrition, lifestyle, and behavior change for chronic conditions like autoimmune diseases, diabetes, digestive disorders, women's health disorders. And it really empowers patients to be champions of their own health. In addition to that, it helps practitioners deliver health care in a high quality, low cost manner. So from where we stand, it might be the solution to changing healthcare across the industry.
Absolutely, and with the Cleveland Clinic stamp of appeal and stamp of authority, I think it could definitely do that. We're here talking about stress, pain, and addiction. Do you see some application for the model in those kinds of issues?
Absolutely. We have a pain management session as part of the Functioning for Life program, and we're seeing that patients are highly motivated to seek alternative ways to treating their pain than just medication and just the traditional ways of dealing with chronic pain. So helping them to understand the connection between nutrition and the connection between the mind and body really moves them in a different direction in dealing with their health issues.
And you got some opiate use in Ohio, right?
Absolutely. It's an epidemic there just like everywhere else. So we are really focused on, alternative strategies for them to be able to deal with their pain. And this program is a solution.
Look, if you're as excited about this as we are here at the Evolution of Medicine, go and listen to the podcast. You can go to functionalforum.com. We did about a 40-minute interview. You can hear about how Tawny came up with it while commuting through Cleveland. She shares the details of how it was rolled out. Super exciting time to be in group visits. Congratulations on the award, and thanks so much for being here. And check out the next segment.
Hi, I'm Josh Gatalis. I'm a clinical nutritionist, and I'm here at the IFM conference on stress and addiction. And there's definitely been some awesome clinical pearls I've picked up. One of them was a study that was done. Well, first of all, they looked at rats and found that when they kept rats in a cage, they would overdose on cocaine and eventually die. And they used this as a model for a lot of studies, but then they took those rats and put them in a rat park and allowed them to roam free and hang out with others. And they didn't take cocaine to the point where they wanted to, really injure themselves, which is a very interesting social experiment that definitely carries over to humans, in that we need that social connection and how important that is, and how social connection is actually, lack of social connection is a higher risk factor than smoking. So that was pretty eye-opening for me. Working with our clients, we don't see that part of their life. So it's really important to understand that that's a key factor in their health picture and in their matrix.
There is a strong connection between the brain and the gut, the neuroenteric axis. And one of the most common reasons why a patient will be seen in the primary care practice or the general gastroenterology practice is for abdominal pain. However, we are under-equipped with tools as to expedite care, and we've been unfortunately stuck in a model with analgesics and even opioids in the past. And so we've seen this emerging epidemic of opioid use. And what we've learned here at the conference and elsewhere is that there's a number of tools that are available for the management of chronic abdominal pain. And today's lecture, which was the keynote, was on mindfulness and data that was shown by Dr. Garland at the University of Utah, which was based on a $25 million NIH grant that he had shown that mindfulness made a difference in terms of pain management outcomes. So there's a growing field of mindfulness and its a relationship to the management of pain. We have new neuromodulators that are shown to be more effective. And the more we learn about this, the more we can actually tackle this difficult problem of pain.
So addiction is not really a topic that's talked about at a lot of functional integrated medicine conferences, but it was one of the focuses of this weekend here at the annual international conference. And we caught up with Dr. Stephen Lloyd, who is an addiction specialist, and he shared this incredible interview, and we'll bring you all the best bits right here. All right, we are here with Dr. Stephen Lloyd. He is an internal medicine doctor turned addiction specialist and has been lecturing here at the Institute for Functional Medicine's annual international conference. Lots of hype on the app, people taking pictures and I think having like a really transformational experience with the talk. So first of all, the journey from internal medicine to addiction, how did that happen for you?
Well, it happened for me with my own addiction. And, it's one of the things I shared in my talk that, I was going through life as a young doc in residency, my last month of, the last 6 months of residency training in internal medicine as a hospitalist. I was serving as chief resident at the time, and I used a half of a 5 milligram Lortab on the way home from work one day. Had never had an issue, had never used anything really. And, but I did have a history of not being able to drink very successfully, and I think that's probably putting it mildly. And so, within 3 years, I wound up using about 500 milligrams of OxyContin a day. And so it was a result of my own addiction and struggles that I wound up in the field of addiction medicine. The crazy thing is that when I was in treatment, I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life for maybe the first time. I know that sounds strange because I'd already been to med school, but I felt like that if I was successful in this and could sustain my own recovery, that it was an area of medicine that I just loved. I'd never even heard of addiction medicine as a specialty. I didn't even know it existed.
How much of an advantage do you have in engaging with patients having been through your own journey?
People ask that a lot and say, well, do you think you have to travel this road to be able to do it? And my answer to that is no, you absolutely don't. You have to have a kind and loving heart and be willing to meet people where they are. And if you can do that, you can work in this field. But for me, I think it matters to patients. When I'm talking to them about being dope sick, going through drug withdrawals, they know I know what I'm talking about. And that's something that unless you've experienced it, it's really hard to understand where somebody's coming from right in front of you. And I've seen colleagues of mine who are really good doctors that almost blow withdrawal symptoms off or blow off the process of detox, and they have no idea. And I think that for me as a physician, that experience helps me connect with my patients. And as you know, that's really important, but I don't think you have to have that lived experience to be successful in this field.
So you shared a three-part framework in your talk that I think was really, really powerful for helping patients overcome addiction. Can you share that with our audience here a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and one of the things I've looked at since I started doing addiction medicine, because really this is all I've done for almost 15 years. I mean, I don't have any hobbies, and this is it. I mean, and I love it. But I always got so bogged down when I was trying to learn about it. You know, I'm self-taught. I didn't go through a fellowship program, and so I had this, you know, all of this information coming at me in from different directions because it's so convoluted and so many moving parts to it. And so what worked for me was a slot machine, you know, and when the 3 7s come down on the pay line, you know, that's when the money comes out the bottom. And so that's the context that I shared here at the AIC. And, you know, the first 7 is the biology part, genetics. You know, what's your family history? You know, do you have a family history of mental illness or substance use disorder? If you are, then that first 7 is on the pay line. And then the second 7 is all about trauma, childhood trauma, adult trauma. You know, did you grow up in a household where, you know, you were, you know, allowed to be a kid and know that you were valued and that you mattered? Or did you grow up in a household that was riddled with substance use where you had to be the dad or mom to your younger sibling? You know, were you a victim of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse? And with that history now, both of those being positive, I have 2 7s on the pay line. And then the third 7 is simply the social opportunity. And with the opioids, you know, I kind of covered a little bit about how that happened with the decade of pain in the 1990s, and then the introduction of OxyContin and the marketing around that by Purdue Pharma. And so, you know, once you have that, then, you know, that's the addiction, you know, kind of the addiction scale or format that I use. But I think the other thing that was really important that we got a chance to cover was the difference between addiction and dependence. Because addiction is more than, you know, more than being dependent. Matter of fact, you don't even have to be dependent to be addicted. Dependence is when you stop the chemical. You have a physiologic withdrawal syndrome, i.e. you get dope sick. Okay? Addiction is the continued use despite consequences, no matter how much you use and no matter the route you use. So if you're continuing to use something, and I don't care what it is, and that's what makes, you know, what makes this so, you know, so amiable going forward, is that it won't matter if we're talking about methamphetamine or process addictions like gambling, food, internet pornography, you know, internet, telephone, that the continued use despite consequences is really what separates addiction, as well as the phenomenon of cravings. So that's what I tried to get across in my talk, and in doing that, I use my personal story and my own struggles and you know, the things that I faced, and then some of the things that allowed me to get through that. And I think that's why people connect with it.
That's awesome. So let's start with the sort of serious, I don't mean to trivialize some addictions and others, but let's start with, you know, there are doctors who watch this and practitioners that lose this who are dealing with opiate addiction, as an example. I mean, this is a big thing in the news right now. What is your sort of framework for helping people with those kind of problems?
Well, the first thing is that I have to have my eyes open and be able to see it. Right? If you're never going to diagnose anything, or I'm never going to diagnose anything if I don't think of it or if I don't look for it. And, you know, there's a lot of tools we have out there now that I think that we can use to help identify this. One of them is you know, the controlled substance monitoring data banks. You know, all 50 states have them now, where when the doctor writes a prescription, then it goes into a data bank, and before he writes that prescription, he queries the data bank to see if the patient's going to other providers and getting controlled substances. And I think that's a big time tool for us. I've got docs that say, well, you know, they trust their gut. Well, my gut tells me, and I don't mean to offend you, but your gut's not very good, right? And I get fooled all the time with that. So when, you know, I think of it like a blood pressure cuff, these data banks, I think of it like a blood pressure cuff. Looking at you, I can't tell if your blood pressure's high. If I put a cuff on you, then I can figure it out. And so when I have something hard and solid like a controlled substance monitoring data bank, or I have somebody that keeps having consequences, then I know what I'm looking at. And there is the time to reach out and help. And that's very tough for most physicians or healthcare providers in general, because we're kind of codependent by nature, right? We want people to like us. You come to see me, I want you to leave here like you got some help. And when we have to maybe confront somebody in a loving way about the possibility that they may be misusing prescribed substances, that becomes difficult. And I think that's probably the biggest hurdle we have to overcome. And you know, looking somebody in the eye and instead of giving them what they want or what they came for, is explaining to them what you see and then what your concerns are. And that's what I love about the IFM. I didn't know it existed. And I think there's a lot of practitioners that I've met here that actually do that. They get to know their patients on that level. They try to provide a framework for them moving forward, even when it's hard to do, say around food, right? Because that's a big thing here is nutrition, and I love that. But it's hard to talk to somebody about that sometimes, particularly if they're overweight, without offending them, right? Yeah. And so I think that a lot of providers have issues around that and are scared that they're going to run patients off or they're scared of that confrontation. And I always hesitate to use the word confrontation because it's not mean. Right? I mean, there's one way to confront you. I can just get in your face and start yelling at you, and that's not going to do any good. Or I can lay things out and let you draw the lines. And it's really what I try to do in my talk here at the AIC is just lay it out there and then let people start to draw the connections. And it's been amazing to me, walking the hallways here of how that's happened.
So with obviously you said food. There's a range of addiction. There's also like phone addiction and there's a whole range of things now. Is there a process that you recommend to doctors to, once they've identified that there is an addiction here, on particularly withdrawing people from things that they have, and how to monitor that and effectively do that?
Well, addiction is a disease that the patient really has to diagnose themselves, right? I mean, they've got to really buy into the diagnosis. I can sit here and tell you all day long, I think you have a drinking problem. But until you believe that yourself, it's pretty difficult to work with. So what I can do is keep guiding you down that path. And then when you make the connection, go ahead and be able to offer help at that point. And I think when you're looking at the acute management, I mean, the first thing that we have to do is we have to make sure our patients are safe. Right. And if I have somebody that's using intravenously or snorting, not saying that using things orally is not dangerous, it is, but these two routes are more dangerous because of infectious disease, right? Hepatitis C in both cases, and then HIV with intravenous use. And so the first thing I have to do is make sure that my patient is safe. And if there is a physiologic dependence upon the substance, and the big ones that come to mind are opioids, which we're talking about, benzodiazepines, Xanax, Valium, Klonopin, those type drugs, and then alcohol. If there is a physiologic dependence, i.e. when the patient stops it, do they get sick, then that's a little more intense treatment. That's going to require a period of, a lot of times or most times, inpatient detoxification. And two of those will actually kill you. Now, opioid addiction or opioid dependence, withdrawal from that, won't kill you. It make you wish you were dead, okay? But it actually won't kill you for the most part. Methadone is a little bit different story. But when you start looking at alcohol and benzodiazepine withdrawal, that can for sure kill you. So the substances really determine the intensity of care during that acute withdrawal period. And then after that, there's so many different routes out there, and one of the things I really wanted to impress upon the audience here, and hopefully on this broadcast, is when you're looking at opioids, really there's two ways to go. For the masses, for the most part, it'll be medication maintenance of some sort with a drug like buprenorphine or methadone or naltrexone, injectable Vivitrol. And that's what insurance companies are pushing people to do big time. As a matter of fact, when you call the insurance company for prior approval, they want to know which anti-craving medication your patient's going to be on. It's not if, it's when. And then the other route, which is the route that I went through of intensive inpatient treatment for a prolonged period of time, up to 90 days, with aftercare and follow-up lasting years. And that's going to become increasingly rare, and it is becoming increasingly rare. It's not covered by insurance, and you have to have resources in order to do that. Average cost you're looking at for that kind of program right now is probably upwards of $100,000. Wow. And that's not accessible to most people. So, after that initial detox, then I would encourage the folks watching this, to meet your patient where they are, decide the route that's best for them, help them in that decision, and then don't be afraid to go down that route. A lot of times, when I first started, my own biases got in the way, right? And because I knew that medication had this great mortality benefit of about 70%, but I didn't use medication. Right, so why do you need it? All right, and you see what I'm saying, and I made those mistakes for the longest time. And what I had to finally realize was that we're all different, and what works for you may not work for what works for you may not work for me, or you may not have the resources to do what I had to do. And so those were obstacles that I had to overcome early on. And then I had to overcome obstacles from the treatment industry in general, because we have, as I told the group in the Q&A yesterday, sometimes it can be the most mean and hateful part of healthcare that I've ever seen. You have somebody that's actually doing well and they're using medication and their life's getting better. They're not putting a needle in their arm anymore. They have their spouse back. They're getting their kids back. They have a job. I mean, I think we'd all agree those are successes. Yet they're shamed for using the medication. Oh, you have a crutch, or you're not really clean. I hate the words clean and dirty, but I'll use it for this context. And I think that is, I think it's incredibly hurtful, and it's also harmful. I've had multiple patients in this calendar year that have been doing just like I told you, and then because of their parents or peers have stopped medication, and then, I get to get notice that they've overdosed and died. And it's been at least 10 this calendar year, and we're in late May.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I can certainly, I can certainly understand that, and I think that kind of idea is part of the functional medicine community, because we see other diseases that, like type 2 diabetes or other things that can be dealt with by non-pharmacological ideas, and we're like, hey, this doesn't need medication really, like let's try and work in different areas. And so I can see how that, that could certainly happen. Is there anything specific for food-related addictions that you found? Because ultimately I think a lot of practitioners in our space are dealing with probably more of that than benzos.
The single hardest thing I deal with in addiction is food. For me, I wake up this morning, I've been in recovery for nearly 15 years, and my day starts the same way every day. Today, I am not going to use pills. I am not going to use alcohol, right? And that's a finite thing, right? I'm not going to do that today. Food's a little different, right? That's a different story, because you can't say, well, I'm just not going to do it.
Breatharian.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, the thing that I've really come to understand with dealing with any food addiction, whether it's overeating or whether it's, diseases like anorexia nervosa or bulimia, is really addressing the trauma behind those. And because I am not versed enough to open a treatment center to where I, just deal with food addiction. I'm not, but I have to be able to recognize that in my practice, and then get my patients to somebody that I trust, and somebody who's going to take a trauma-based approach. I really believe in a trauma-based approach for all addiction, but for food addiction in particular, it's an absolute must.
So we've talked about delivering trauma support. We've talked about very expensive therapies, and all of these things would be like, it's a lot more healthcare. And I just wanted to get your thoughts. One of the things that we've been talking about in 2009 a lot at the Evolution of Medicine is the power of group medicine and working together. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on how that relates to addiction and how that can help to scale some of these things up.
Right. I led my talk with this yesterday because I'm going to talk about medication. I'm going to talk about, the 3 7s. But when we're talking about the opposite of addiction is not even recovery. It's community and relationship. And I stole that from Johann Hari, but I believe it. I live it. And when we can engage our patients in community, then there'll be less talk about medication, and there'll be less talk about need for these other things, because whenever you're engaged in community, you do better. And it's building those communities, and how do you build them? I think those are the challenges. And when you look at addiction, there's certain communities that already exist out there, right? The 12-step community is huge, right? There's thousands of groups across the country. I think it's a little bit more difficult when you start looking at opioid addiction in those 12-step models, just because of the role that medication plays, because a lot of times those groups will ostracize patients on medication, and it actually makes things worse. So what I want to do is create an environment where your medication is between you and your doctor. Right? Nobody else has to know that, and then getting my patients to understand that this is not a crutch, and then getting them involved in community and relationship. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. In Tennessee, probably the biggest thing that we've done over the past 5 years is engaging our faith-based community. We now have congregations. We have over 300 of them that are certified recovery-oriented congregations. So we've went into their church. I've been in every nook and cranny county in the state of Tennessee, educating congregations on addiction. What is it? And the really great thing about that is that so many people that we're educating have somebody in their own family with the issue, and then watch the bridges that start to get built there, and they realize all of a sudden that my family member is not this amoralistic, person without a soul that you can actually help them. And I think that's helped us in Tennessee with our faith-based organizations in forming these. So things that they would do in their communities would be open up their churches for those type of meetings. Use the church van to help people to doctor's appointments or to job interviews, because a lot of them have lost their driver's license through this process, and there's a process that they'll have to go through getting it back. And so that's been, for me, that's been one of the most rewarding things that we've done in Tennessee, and it's starting to spread to other states.
That's amazing. You know, we've seen obviously the Daniel plan for food and behavior. We see that. It's really amazing what the pre-existing communities infused with the right information can have a transformational impact.
Well, human beings are built to be social creatures. And I talk to my patients about that all the time. If you don't believe me, what do we do with people that misbehave? We isolate them. And put them in jail and prison. Well, what if you misbehave in jail or prison? We put you in solitary. I mean, we take away from you the thing that you absolutely have to have. And so we're community human beings. And this conference is certainly the best example of that I've ever seen. Because when we engage in community and we start to take on each other's problems and step into relationship, then we can really start to move forward. And I think that's been really the key thing for me through the last 15 years.
Awesome. So most practitioners who are watching this are, probably not doing a ton of, opiate withdrawal. Who's the right practitioner for them to partner with in their community to be able to make sure that they can provide this team approach?
Well, the thing about addiction medicine now that is so awesome and it's growing so fast. So in most communities around the country now, there should be somebody with, at least within a reasonable drive that can help. And I would look for somebody that's certified in addiction medicine. And that's easy to find on ASAM's website, the American Society of Addiction Medicine. And the other thing is I would look for providers that are using evidence-based medicine. We want to do what we know works, and there are certain things that we know do work. If you have patients that do have resources, I can't emphasize enough the importance of a practice or a group of practitioners that are trained in EMDR, brain spotting, interventions like that to help with both childhood trauma and adult trauma.
Beautiful. So if you're watching this at one of our Functional Forum meetup groups, maybe schedule this session again and invite some addiction medicine doctors to your community. Tell them what you do in functional medicine, connect with the other practitioners and build a community, a real support community. That's the purpose of the meetup groups. Doc, thank you so much for sharing, being here at the conference and being part of it. Dr. Stephen Lloyd, and check out the next segment.
If there's anything I learned, there's that you may not think you're seeing addicted patients, but there's so much food addiction or emotional drama addiction. There's so many things in our lives that we can be addicted to, whether it be coffee or the addiction of needing something always around. I've got to watch TV, I got to be doing something. And so there's so much inner focus that we need to focus on ourselves and how to get out of that situation. You can look at drug abuse and you can look at alcohol abuse, but we're all kind of in that situation of whether it's addicted to Facebook or addicted to TV or addicted to something else, that stuff is affecting our life. So how does an AA person and an alcoholic that's addicted or a narcotic user, how do they get out of that situation? It's getting back to their family. It's connecting with loved ones, lost people, apologizing, kind of reliving experiences and coming to terms with it, going back to childhood issues that they never addressed. So although this conference a lot about chronic pain, it can really affect everyone, and everyone can benefit somehow from it. So hopefully I'm going to take some of this knowledge back to my practice and really acknowledge where people may be struggling. They may have an autoimmune condition that has nothing to do with alcohol, but maybe we can use that knowledge to apply it to something else where they need to go connect with a loved one that they maybe haven't talked to in years, and that's affecting them.
My name is Tracy Harrison from the School of Applied Functional Medicine, and my tip for practitioners from this wonderful event is how much everyone is coming down to brass tacks of the importance of engaging with each unique patient and client on their particular self-care needs. When we take care of ourselves, when we allow more joy in our life, we talk about vitamin J. When we allow more joy in our life, not only do we feel better, our biochemistry changes. It recatalyzes our belief in goodness in the world. And so I want to encourage every practitioner of every modality to reconnect with each unique person. What is your vitamin J? What small increase can you begin to add to your lifestyle on a daily basis to access that? Where is there an opening or a beginning to get more of that critical nutrient into our overall lives?
Hi, my name is Dr. Shiroko Sokic. I'm the owner of Heart to Heart Medical Center and the author of a book, Healing When It Seems Impossible, 7 Keys to Defy the Odds. And my tip today is, especially when you're dealing with pain, you should refer a person to acupuncture. Acupuncture is 85% effective in dealing with pain conditions and is drug-free and fairly easy to receive, usually painless. So try acupuncture.
At FullScript, we've been busy creating an industry-leading experience for practitioners so that their patients can experience industry-leading integrative healthcare. How do we do it? By constantly improving practitioner workflows through EHR integrations, we give practitioners the ability to write supplement recommendations through FullScript without leaving their preferred EHR. By making it easy to send similar recommendations and resources to multiple patients with our templates tool. Simply create a recommendation once and customize for each patient. Through adherence management, patient adherence is a priority with direct-to-patient prescriptions, fulfillment reminders, refill reminders, and auto-ship. Keeping patients on the path to wellness has never been more attainable. And coming soon, patients will be able to receive customizable reminders via email or text, so even on the busiest of days, their supplement protocol will always be top of mind. We're helping practitioners find the products that are best suited to their patients' needs. With the click of a button, our new search tool helps you find supplements that accommodate allergies, lifestyle choices, and patient preferences. And by using advanced technologies coupled with a mountain of user research and feedback, we're rolling out a brand new, unparalleled, immersive patient experience. At FullScript, we're taking the hassle out of integrative healthcare, one innovation at a time.
Super excited to share an awesome interview with Dr. Heather Tick. She is a pain specialist and an integrated pain specialist. She gave a great lecture on all the tools that they use to create an integrated pain strategy. Couldn't be more important at this exact moment. Check out this interview, Dr. Heather Tick. All right, we are here with Dr. Heather Tick, integrative pain specialist. Doc, tell me a little bit about your journey to become so passionate about pain medicine and integrated pain care.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, by the way. I began as a conventionally trained physician, an MD doctor, trained at the University of Toronto. But even before I went to medical school, I understood that things like nutrition and exercise and sleep were really important for my life to stay healthy and to be able to be at my peak performance. And so I carried that into medical school with me, and even during my first year of medical school, I took my first acupuncture course. And I was astounded at the difference between the approach and the desired outcome of acupuncture versus conventional medicine. So during that, for the 6 months before that I took that course, I had a shoulder problem, my right shoulder, and I really couldn't lift my arm very well. And you could call it rotator cuff or impingement syndrome, lots of different things. I went to physical therapy, I went to doctors, and nothing was helping. And I fortunately had a bad reaction to the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, so I actually couldn't take them, which is a good thing as far as I was concerned. And then I went to this acupuncture course, and they said, well, does anybody volunteer to be treated? And so I used my good arm and put it up and said, yeah, me, I'll be happy to be treated. And they gave me one treatment during that session, during which time I already had a slight improvement. And then they gave me some needles to take home and a few places that I could safely put needles on myself through the next week, every couple of days. And then the next class was in a week. I had no symptoms by a week, nothing. I was totally healed. And nothing that I had tried before for 6 months did anything but make me worse. Yeah. And so that really brought home the importance of integrative care and looking outside of conventional medicine for healing.
Well, now you're putting together whole programs. So what is in the toolkit of the integrated pain specialist that's not in the toolkit of the regular pain doc?
Okay, so I think it's really important for us to talk about evidence-based care. because that's the level playing ground for whether it's conventional or whether it's integrative. And also, to be clear, it's really important to know that the majority of what we do in conventional medicine is not evidence-based. So everybody thinks that if it's conventional, it's evidence-based, and anything outside is not evidence-based. And that dichotomy does not exist. So that's important to know. So the things that we have good evidence for are acupuncture for acute and chronic pain of a whole variety of sorts, including migraine, back pain, neck pain. And massage therapy has some good evidence. Music therapy, whether it's done formally in a structured program or whether it's just people recognizing that when they play music and that they get that distraction and get that whatever feeling they get with music, the joy, that it actually helps and improves. Meditation, mindfulness-based meditation, and all of the mindfulness mind-body strategies are extremely helpful. So those need to be included. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, all have evidence for certain conditions, so they need to be included. Nutrition, actually, I should have mentioned that first. Nutrition is the first place to start. And instilling patients with the idea that just because they have pain doesn't mean they can't strive to be healthier and actually be healthy. That is very often a novel idea for many pain patients, unless they've been lucky enough to see an integrative practitioner before they get to see me. Most of them don't, they feel that that's impossible, that they can't be healthy until they get rid of pain. And it's the other way around. They have to be healthy before they can get rid of pain.
Yeah, that's a very much sort of like a diagnostic versus a prognostic kind of outlook. And do you see sort of in the greater sort of world that we're operating in, evidence of a sort of a shift towards these kind of strategies being more used?
Well, I think it all began in 2010 with the Army Surgeon General's Pain Task Force report. That was the first of the modern pain reviews of evidence and statements of recommended guidelines, though it's not a formal guideline paper. But what they did is they flipped the therapeutic order. They said, start first with diet, nutrition, mindfulness, exercise, acupuncture, chiropractic, massage, and leave the drugs, the surgeries, the procedures for way down the line, instead of what happens now, which is the integrative stuff is the port of last resort after you've sliced and diced and medicated people way over the top, and after everybody's so discouraged by the outcomes and totally believing that nothing can ever help. So they recommended that, and that really has set the tone for all the subsequent guidelines and reviews and analyses that have come out since. So even now CMS, HHS, CDC, the ACP, American College of Physicians, everybody is coming out and saying we need to use these things first because they are low risk, they are relatively low cost to the system, even though they may cost out of pocket to the patient. And they're very acceptable and they have effectiveness.
Yeah, I'm sure the naturopathic doctors that are watching will appreciate the talk about the therapeutic order, because that's like a real big part of their medicine, and we see that moving in that direction. What do you see it's going to take from here, now that there is evidence and now that it's coming out, let's say in the Army setting, for this to just become a sort of a default of care pre-opioid for all ranges of pain that are being used right now?
Yeah, well, I think there is a lot of re-education that has to happen. We have in the United States and North America and less so in other Western countries, but still to some extent, we have an addiction to drugs. But I'm not talking about specific drugs. I'm talking about the idea of drugs. The idea that drugs are a magic bullet, that it's like penicillin was for treating disease when it first came out, treating pneumonia, and it saved lives, and it was brilliant, and it was a silver bullet, and it was very effective. We don't have many drugs that are like that. There are some drugs that are life-saving, but most drugs are treating symptoms. And so you're not really addressing the issue of how does the body heal and how can we foster and enhance the body's ability to heal. Because we really do know that the body has an intention to heal and an energy to heal itself. Yeah. So we need to re-educate both the population, the public, as well as practitioners to recognize that what we're looking at for an outcome in giving people conventional care is usually just symptom reduction as opposed to well-being of the patient. So if we can do that, I think we can move this along much faster. But even as we stand right now, CMS is reevaluating coverage for integrative strategies, integrative options. HHS has just done a large review with AHRQ. The CDC has recommendations to use non-pharm first. ACP, American College of Physicians, released guidelines for acute and chronic back pain, and for the first strategies are all non-pharmacologic. And for chronic back pain, they don't even have pharmacologic strategies listed.
Imagine pain care in 10 years' time, right? Mm-hmm. What practitioner do you see in what order, and what is the root cause diagnostic structure to be able to come up with something that costs the least and gets the most health quickest?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good way of looking at it. My dream scenario would be, and maybe we'll get there. We seem to be over the last few years to have really accelerated towards it because of the huge disaster we have with chronic pain and opioids. So I see that it'll be team-based care, and that it will not just be a single practitioner on their own trying to do everything for a patient. I think different views of different perspectives of different professions, different disciplines can be extremely helpful. And actually, it's going back 20 years for me, because 20 years ago, I co-founded an integrative pain clinic that had everybody in it. We had physicians, acupuncture, chiropractic, osteopathy, physical therapy, yoga, energy medicine, mind-body therapies with social work and psychiatry and psychology. What else did we have? Acupuncture. I did my form of dry needling gun IMS, which is a particular type of myofascial release. We had other kinds of myofascial release. And we got together and had rounds, and we talked about patients.
And how did you decide in that clinic what goes first? Because of the health system, the first thing that happened was a physician. I needed to see the patient and give a diagnosis, because everything hinges on diagnosis. But as we know in functional medicine, diagnosis, it is a concept that eliminates a lot of the individual characteristics of this particular patient in front of us that really do inform treatment. And so the decisions as to who was the first person they got to see, sometimes we had the time, we only had rounds once a week, so I would present new patients, and we would talk about, well, where should we approach this person from? Other times, I would have to decide, because we weren't close to rounds and we needed to get people seen and treated. And so I would choose what I felt would be most beneficial to them, along with what their personal perspective was. Now, everybody got started on a diet, and I sometimes had a holistic nutritionist in the clinic, and sometimes didn't have one available, so I would do that work with them. Okay. Everybody got that. And then very often they would be started with some sort of myofascial release, because most of them did have myofascial pain. That could be manual release, that could be what I was doing with IMS, it could be osteopathy or chiropractic. So there would be one of the physical modalities would be used with them. And then we would see how they did, and then see what to add later. And often it was based on what
was of most interest to them, and what the practitioner that was treating them would say, I need a little help with this. This would be helpful for this person.
So one of the questions I'm sure is going to come up is, how do you make this affordable and accessible? Because that's a lot of practitioners doing a lot of therapies and so forth. What do you see as ways that we can make this available to probably the people that need it the most, right? Mm-hmm. The people, the most vulnerable in society who are on all the pain meds. What's your thoughts there?
So I think that there's a really good strategy for this that not only makes it more affordable, but also makes it more effective for people. So especially people in pain, pain is isolating. And putting people in groups, they can be a whole variety of different groups, and I can mention a few of the different strategies we can use for grouping people into therapeutic settings. But being in a group with other people, having feedback from other people, hearing how they relate to treatments, things that they've tried, both makes it more affordable, because you can have, for example, a row of tables in a room with one acupuncturist, and acupuncture needles can be placed in many people at the same time, dramatically lowering cost. It can be, there are places around where you can get community acupuncture for $10 or $15 per session. But also this could be provided in a larger group setting where there's other education and counseling that's done that can then be part of a medical visit, that's a group medical visit. And so the insurance does pay for it. The insurance is paying a lower rate because it's a group visit. And everybody gets to collaborate and hear what's going on in other people's lives. So in those groups, very often, when you do sort of processing afterwards, people will say, gee, I never thought of this strategy. Or they'll say, I was inspired by so-and-so. That person decided to come off of their opioids faster than I was going, and I was just inspired, so I've just dropped by 50%. And other times you'll hear them say, I thought I was the only one. Yeah. And that's really profound.
Absolutely. We've said it many times this year, and we'll keep saying it. We think 2019 is the year of the beginning of the group visit model, and I'm so glad to hear that you say that it's powerful in pain, because whether it's the peer-to-peer validation, whether it's the perception of pain, where it's like the perception of what's possible with pain. Mm-hmm. I was super excited to do that. So thank you for your advocacy, and I look forward to seeing how this grows in the next decade.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. So 2 years ago, we were here talking about the brain. Last year, we were talking about autoimmune disease. And this year, we're talking about stress, pain, and addiction. And it's clear to me, and I hope it's clear to you, that for these complex chronic illnesses, we need an operating system of medicine that is patient-centered and takes advantage of understanding of complexity, and that is functional medicine. I think this is a medicine whose time has come for these chronic conditions. I hope you agree. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.